Hey guys, today marks the 3-year anniversary of the Mining and Smithing Rework. This complete skill overhaul was introduced on January 7th, 2019, and it brought brand new ores to the game, new weapons and armor, as well as much more. It was a full rework, which is what the majority of the RuneScape community asked for, rather than just a limited rework by adding some more content above level 70. Now, the Mining and Smithing Rework fixed these two outdated skills and made it align much better with combat, since you could now smith tier 90 melee gear at level 90 smithing, rather than only being able to smith tier 50 rune gear at level 85 smithing and above. It also changed the drop tables of just about every creature in the game by introducing salvage drops, and this massive overhaul was seen as an extremely successful update, and it was really well received by the community. And now I do think it is time for another full rework, this time for woodcutting and fletching. Now, before I jump into some ideas about how this potential rework may work, I should mention that we have not received any confirmation from Jagex as to whether these skills will be reworked or they are being worked on. So this video is purely speculation and opinion by myself and the community. Now, as the years have gone by, there have been many speculations regarding a woodcutting and fletching rework, and the community has came up with some pretty good ideas, and I will be demonstrating some of Lord Kylle's concepts that he came up with and he posted on Reddit. Now to start, let's look at woodcutting and its current problems. Woodcutting is arguably one of the most outdated skills in RuneScape 3. Like mining and smithing, woodcutting was also one of the original 16 skills in RuneScape, and it hasn't had a new piece of content added to the skill since Overgrown Idols on August 5th of 2019 as a part of the Anachronia update. So woodcutting does have three main problems to the skill. One being that XP rates are some of the lowest in the game. This isn't a huge problem, and like we saw with the mining rework, they actually did keep the XP rates relatively low compared to other skills. So I wouldn't say it is too low, but it is one of the lowest in the game. Second, there isn't much content in the later levels of the skill, including not having a hatchet better than the tier 71 crystal hatchet. And 3, the woodcutting levels do not match up with fletching, and I would argue that this is probably the biggest problem. Now, there are a ton of potential solutions that can solve these problems, but one thing is for sure, we need new tiers of trees, or at least move around the existing trees. Now, this too was one of the main problems with the mining and smithing skills. In order to match up both woodcutting and fletching to combat, we will have to have a new tier of logs for each 10th level. That way the skills match much better with each other and ranged. This new tier rework can even be done with existing trees in the game. So as you can see, here are a list of a few different trees that are already in the game and their current woodcutting levels to chop them. And I also included the proposed woodcutting level. And as you can see, it is distributed evenly across the board. So you do have a bit of content at each level. And then you could also implement this with fletching, so you will be able to fletch the certain gear for those levels as well. Now, of course, there are some other trees in the game that are not on this list, but we need to have a core tier of logs that are spread out in increments of 10 levels so that it matches with the combat tier system. You can see that the current woodcutting levels on these logs are all over the place, and the skill has much more content at lower levels, which is the opposite of what should happen since the XP gap between levels are much higher at the high levels. Now, the actual mechanics of woodcutting could also be changed to be more similar to the current mining mechanics. Trees could have a certain amount of hit points like ores, and a damage mechanic could be implemented like with mining, where it does take into account your level, tier of hatchet used, and strength level. There were also some interesting ideas from players in the community that suggested that trees end up falling after a while. Then the player can chop the fallen tree for lower XP but more logs. This would actually be quite interesting for the skill, and it will add a bit of uniqueness to it rather than just being exactly like the mining and smithing rework. So this is an idea that could possibly work, just to make the woodcutting skill a bit different from other skills. Wood crates could also be added to mimic the ore boxes that we have for mining. Also, tier 1 to 90 hatchets should also be smithable but non-augmentable. A new tier 80 and tier 90 hatchet should be created as well. The tier 80 could be created possibly by combining a dragon hatchet to the infernal adaze, and the tier 90 hatchet could potentially be created by combining the crystal hatchet to a new tier 80 hatchet. Now, these changes to woodcutting, they could go really well with a fletching rework as well. As you can see, currently you can only fletch 7 different bows in the game, and the fletching level requirements range from 1 to 95. A fletching rework could implement new bow tiers for range, just like how the smithing update created new gear for melee. These bows would be non-augmentable, making them much less powerful than the current weapons and gear that you can obtain through bossing. But for example, after the rework, you could be able to fletch a tier 90 Elder bow, which would have tier 90 stats, but just can't be augmented. The same could be done for crossbows. New tiers of crossbows equivalent to the tier of metal bar used could possibly be made. So for example, you could make a tier 90 Elder Rune crossbow that also could not be augmented. These crossbows would potentially require a stock of the equivalent log, so for the Elder Rune crossbow, for example, it may require an Elder Rune limb, which you could smith, and then also an Elder stock, which you would be able to create from the Elder logs. All bolts and arrows could also be changed to the proper tier as well following this potential update. Now, despite it looking fairly easy to rework woodcutting and fletching, it would also affect many other aspects in the game as well. A complete woodcutting rework would require a lot of changes to be made to fire making and even some changes for construction. Much like the mining and smithing rework, a woodcutting rework would require new locations to chop certain trees, and possibly even a brand new type of tree to enter the game. On top of this, there would of course need to be some changes to some boss and mob drops, since they too would be dropping logs, and this might need to be tweaked. The woodcutting and fletching rework may be a big task for the dev team to work on, but I think it is an area of RuneScape that has been neglected for quite some time. It would be really nice to see both of these skills reworked to reflect some cohesiveness with mining and smithing and also the ranged skill. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of a potential woodcutting and fletching rework and whether or not you would like to see something like this in the future. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.